The first crack in my life didn't appear quietly. It arrived with the sound of shattering glass, a woman's scream, and my own name being dragged into a lie I didn't understand. I still remember the heat of the spotlight, the sting of panic, the taste of metal on my tongue. It was a Thursday night. Rain hammered the streets of Brighton, turning the pavements into mirrors. I had just finished a late shift and stopped by a small bar near the marina, the sort of place where no one knew my name and no one cared. That night, it was almost empty. Just me, the bartender polishing glasses, and a couple arguing near the back. I wasn't paying attention until the woman suddenly stood up, her chair crashing to the floor. "Stay away from me, Brandon," she shouted. Brandon. My name. But I didn't know her. I had never seen her before. The man with her, tall, well-dressed, carrying himself with the arrogance of someone used to winning, grabbed her wrist. I said, "Calm down," he hissed. She yanked herself free, stumbled backward, and crashed into my table, knocking my drink to the floor. For a moment she clung to me, trembling. "Please," she whispered, "don't let him take me." Her perfume was sharp, expensive, strangely familiar. The bartender called out, "Everything all right over there?" The man straightened his shoulders and forced a smile. "We're fine. My wife just had too much to drink." "I'm not your wife," she spat, and suddenly her eyes, wild, frightened, darted to mine. "You know who he is, don't you?" she asked me. I stared at her. "No," I said slowly, "I don't." But she shook her head, clutching my shirt like I was her last lifeline. "He's lying," she breathed, "just like he lied to her, to your wife, to—" "Enough," the man snapped. He reached for her again, and in that moment something inside me snapped too. I stood up, grabbed his wrist and pushed him back. "Mate," I said, my voice low, "you need to walk away." His eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake, Brandon." There it was again. My name, said like a threat. He leaned in, close enough for me to smell the expensive whiskey on his breath. "You don't even realize what's happening yet, but you will." He walked out into the rain, leaving the woman shaking in front of me. I sighed. "You okay?" She stared at the door he'd disappeared through. "No," she whispered, "and neither are you." Before I could ask her what she meant, she pulled away, grabbed her coat, and hurried out of the bar, disappearing into the storm. And I stood there alone with the sinking, nauseating feeling that something had just begun. Something dark. Something that involved me, and, somehow, my wife. I didn't know it then, but that night was the first domino. The first moment where my life, my marriage, my friendships, everything I trusted, began to fall apart. And all of it, because of one man. One man my wife should never have met. One man I would soon learn far too much about. When I got home that night, the house was silent except for the steady hum of the old refrigerator. Our two-story place in Hove always felt warm, lived in. But that night, it felt cold, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. My wife, Claire, was sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open, her blonde hair twisted into a loose bun. She looked exhausted, or guilty, couldn't tell which. She didn't look up when I walked in. "You're late," she said. Her voice was calm, but something in it was rehearsed, like she'd practiced the line before I even stepped through the door. I hung up my wet jacket and walked closer. "Crazy night," I said. "You?" She shrugged. "Deadlines, meetings, usual chaos." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. It had been happening for weeks. The evasive tone, the soft smiles that didn't reach her eyes, the way she angled her phone when messages came in. Before tonight, I'd forced myself to trust her. Before tonight, I still believed nothing could shake our 11-year marriage. But the woman from the bar, the fear in her voice when she said "your wife," echoed in my mind like a warning. Claire typed a few more words, shut her laptop and stood to make tea. "Everything okay?" I asked. She paused just a fraction too long. "Yes," she said. "Why wouldn't it be?" I leaned against the counter, watching her hands shake slightly as she poured boiling water into a mug. Any strange calls today? I asked casually. Messages? People showing up somewhere they shouldn't? She froze. Then she forced a laugh. What? No. Brandon, what are you talking about? I didn't answer. Not yet. Because I was afraid of the answer myself. Instead I said, I ran into an old friend tonight. We talked about marriages falling apart. About secrets. Another stiff pause. Her shoulders tensed. Why would you talk about that? She asked quietly. I took a slow breath. Claire, is there something you want to tell me? She turned to face me, her eyes sharp, defensive. Are you accusing me of something? Because if we're doing this, at least be honest about why. I opened my mouth, but didn't get the chance to speak. Her phone buzzed on the table. A single message. A name flashing across the screen before it faded. A man's name. Evan. I'd never heard of him. Claire snatched the phone so quickly it nearly fell from the table. Work, she said instantly. Too instantly. She started to walk past me, but I stepped in her way. Claire, I said softly. Look at me. She did. And for the first time in years, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Fear. Guilt. Something else too, something like panic. Who is he? I asked. Her lips parted. A lie poised and ready. But whatever she was about to say evaporated when another message lit up her lock screen. A preview I wasn't supposed to see. Tomorrow night. Same place. Don't bring him. She turned the phone face down, breath quickening. My voice dropped to a whisper. Claire, what have you done? She shook her head, stepping back, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. It's not what you think, she whispered. It's worse. Before I could ask anything else, she rushed upstairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen with only the drip of the faucet and the echo of her last words. Not what I think. Worse. And in that moment I knew, whatever storm had started in that bar, was about to rip my entire life apart. I barely slept that night. Every time I drifted off, I saw flashes of the scene at the bar. The woman's fingers digging into my shirt, her voice trembling as she whispered, he lied to your wife. By morning, the pieces in my head no longer fit together. But one thing was clear. I wasn't dealing with a simple affair. Something else was moving beneath the surface. When I came downstairs, Claire was already dressed for work, standing by the door with her coat in hand. She looked fragile, pale, almost haunted. She didn't reach for her keys. She didn't even look at me. Brandon, she said quietly, can we pretend last night didn't happen? No, I replied. We can't. Her eyes glistened with fear, not defiance. I swear I can explain everything, but not now. Just give me time. Time for what? I stepped closer. To delete messages? Invent stories? Meet whoever that man is? She flinched, but instead of answering, she whispered, I didn't choose this. And then she walked out, leaving me with a sentence that made no sense and terrified me at the same time. The first follow. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. Claire hadn't answered a single message. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her office said she was out for client meetings. So I did something I never imagined myself doing. I got in my car, and I followed my own wife. I kept a distance as she drove out of the city, past the coastal road and into an older part of town where warehouses leaned against each other like tired giants. Finally, she parked near an abandoned textile mill, a place with shattered windows and rust bleeding down its walls. What was she doing in a place like that? She stepped out, looking around nervously, then rushed toward a side entrance. Someone opened it from inside. A man, tall, dark jacket, sharp posture. Not the man from the bar. Someone else. He pulled her in quickly, glancing around before shutting the door. My heart hammered in my chest as I sat there gripping the steering wheel. This wasn't a romantic rendezvous. This was something covert, secretive, wrong. I snapped a single photo from my phone. My hands shook as I zoomed in on the door. Then I got out of the car. The sound of truth. The side entrance was half covered by a collapsed metal awning. I pressed close to the rusted wall and moved quietly, careful not to crunch broken glass under my shoes. I found a narrow crack between the boards of a broken window. Inside, voices echoed through the dim, cavernous hall. Claire. And the man. I told you he's starting to suspect, she said, her voice trembling. That's your problem, he replied. Not threatening. Worse, calm. A deal's a deal. I can't keep doing this, Claire whispered. I can't lie to him anymore. You already have, the man said. Too many times to turn back now. My blood turned cold. What about the money? She asked. Just a whisper. A broken one. The man's reply was like a blade. You get it when we get what we came for. What you came for? I mouthed silently, hands shaking. Claire wiped at her face. I just want this to end. And it will, the man said. But first, he gives us what we want. Me. A chill crawled up my spine. The man continued. You've kept him in the dark this long. Make sure he stays out of the way tomorrow. I can't, she said. He's already suspicious. I think he saw the messages. That's why you need to keep him close. Distract him. We cannot afford him interfering. My pulse pounded in my ears as I leaned against the cold metal wall. This wasn't about an affair. It wasn't even about love. It was something else entirely. Something dangerous. And my wife, the woman I'd shared a life with for 11 years, was working with strangers behind my back. For money. For secrets. For something involving me. I stepped back from the wall, breath shaking, unable to process the sound of her voice saying those things. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they wanted. But I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow wasn't just another day. Tomorrow was a trap. And I was the one they were setting it for. I didn't go home right away. Couldn't. My hands were shaking too hard to grip the steering wheel properly. And my thoughts were spiraling so violently that the city around me blurred into meaningless shapes. Everything I had heard inside that abandoned mill kept replaying in my head. Claire's voice trembling, the man speaking calmly about what they came for. And my own name woven into their plans like a warning. By late afternoon, I knew I couldn't confront Claire until I understood exactly what I was walking into. So instead of heading home, I drove to the one person who had always known more about the darker corners of the city than anyone else. My oldest friend, Mason. He opened the door before I knocked, staring at me with a kind of disbelief usually reserved for seeing a ghost. Brandon, what happened to you? I need help, I said, the words almost stuck in my throat. I need answers. He didn't ask anything else. He simply stepped aside and closed the door behind me. I told him everything. Every detail from the messages on Claire's phone to the doors closing behind her at the mill, to the man telling her to keep me distracted. Mason listened without interrupting. He didn't blink. He just absorbed every word, his jaw tightening more and more. When I finished, he leaned back slowly. Bran, this isn't what you think it is. I know, I said. So tell me what it is. He ran a hand over his face, hesitating. Do you remember Claire's brother? Luke? The mention of him tightened something in my chest. The part of Claire's past we didn't talk about. The part where she spent years cleaning up messes he left behind. Yeah, I said quietly. Why? Because he owed money, Brandon. Serious money. Dangerous money. And those kinds of debts don't get erased. They get inherited. I stared at him. You think this is about Luke? No, Mason replied. I think this is about you. My stomach twisted. He continued. Someone realized you're worth more alive than Luke ever was. Your job, the access you have, the documents on your work laptop. That's the real target. Claire wasn't cheating. She was being used. I sat there, numb. Claire hadn't betrayed me for love. She'd betrayed me because someone was tightening the screws around her life until she cracked. Mason, I whispered. What are they going to do? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up his phone, made 3 calls in rapid succession, and spoke in low, urgent tones. When he finally hung up, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen on him before. You're not going home tonight. Why? Because whatever they're planning, whatever they need you for, it happens tonight. They want you in that house. They're counting on it. Fear washed through me so sharply I had to steady myself against the table. And Claire? I asked. That's the part I'm not certain about, Mason admitted. They won't hurt her unless something goes wrong. But she's a problem now. She knows too much. I closed my eyes. The room felt colder. All this time, I said quietly, she thought hiding the truth from me would keep me safe. And now you're both in the middle of something bigger than either of you, Mason said. You can't face them alone. I'm not, I replied. I'm going to get Claire out. Mason grabbed his keys without hesitation. Then we're ending this. Tonight. Before they do. Mason parked 2 streets away from my house, hidden behind a line of quiet terraced homes. A thin mist clung to the pavement as if the night itself wanted to swallow everything that was about to happen. They'll expect you to come home alone, he said. They'll expect you to be scared, confused, ready to listen. Their plan only works if you don't fight. And Claire? I asked, though I already feared the answer. She's the bait, Mason replied. They won't harm her unless you show resistance. But once they have what they want, I don't know what happens next. I nodded, though it felt like something in my chest cracked. I left the car and walked toward the house. Each step felt heavier than the last. The porch light was off. The curtains closed. The air around the door felt unnaturally still. Inside, the house was almost completely dark. Not the kind of darkness of someone forgetting to turn off a lamp. No, this was deliberate, staged. Claire, I whispered. No answer. I moved carefully up the stairs, keeping close to the wall. The boards didn't creak the way they normally did. Maybe it was adrenaline numbing every sound. When I reached the bedroom door, it was half open. Claire sat on the floor, her back against the bed frame, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked small, defeated, terrified. Brandon, she said, barely breathing the word. You shouldn't be here. I came to take you out of this, I told her. We're leaving, right now. She shook her head violently. You don't understand. They're already. A shadow shifted behind the door. And then a voice followed, calm and certain. Too late. He stepped into the doorway, the same man I saw at the mill. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if this was nothing more than an appointment he was keeping. You should have stayed away, Brandon, he said. Your wife was supposed to keep you busy until we were ready. He grabbed Claire by the arm and pulled her to her feet. She winced but didn't resist. You used her, I said, anger choking my throat. You manipulated her. We used what we had, he replied. And now we use you. He pressed something hard and metallic against Claire's ribs. She gasped softly. You understand how leverage works, he continued. Hand over your work laptop and the access files. Then this ends quietly. And if I don't? A faint smile touched his lips. You will, because he knew Claire was the price. For a moment, neither of us moved. But then, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Fast, loud. Wrong timing for an intruder, too confident for Claire. Before the man could turn fully, Mason burst into the hallway, gripping a metal wrench with both hands. The man jerked, pulling Claire tighter, but she twisted at the same moment. Mason swung the wrench. It connected with the door frame as the man stumbled back, losing his grasp on her. Claire slipped free. Brandon, run! The man lunged toward Mason, but I grabbed his jacket, dragging him back. He was strong, stronger than I expected, and slammed me into the wall hard enough to make my ears ring. The hallway spun, but I didn't let go. Mason swung again, this time hitting the man's shoulder. He roared in pain, twisting, trying to reach for something inside his coat. A weapon. I didn't think. I threw my full weight into him, tackling him into the banister. The wood cracked beneath us. For a terrifying second, the railing gave way and he went over it. His body hit the floor below with a sickening thud. Silence. Then Claire collapsed into my arms, shaking violently. I'm sorry, she cried. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. They threatened Luke. They threatened you. I thought I could fix everything before you ever found out. I held her tighter. Claire, we're done with secrets. You're coming with us. Right now. Mason came down the stairs behind us, breathing hard. We need to leave, he said. Someone will come looking for him. They always do. We left the house together. Claire between us, broken but alive. Mason drove us out of the neighborhood, out of the city, until the lights behind us blurred into nothing. Only when we reached the cliffs outside Brighton did we stop. The wind was sharp, cold, almost cleansing. Claire sat on a bench overlooking the sea, her face buried in her hands. I sat beside her. Mason stayed a few steps away, keeping watch. She finally whispered, "Can you ever forgive me?" I didn't answer right away. I watched the dark horizon instead, listening to the crash of the waves below. At last, I said, "You didn't betray me because you stopped loving me. You betrayed me because you were afraid. That doesn't erase the damage, but it means there's something left to save." Her fingers gripped mine, not as a plea but as someone choosing to breathe again. None of us went back home that night, and nothing would be the same afterward. But as the sun started to rise behind the water, I realized something. I didn't feel broken anymore, just free, not healed, not whole, but finally outside the trap that had nearly swallowed us both. And for the first time in a long time, I could see a path forward, messy, uncertain, but real. The kind of path you choose. The kind that no one forces you into.